The moment she leaned in to kiss him, her diamond bracelet caught the light, my mother's bracelet. It's funny, the things you remember. I didn't flinch at the kiss. Not even at the way her fingers trailed down his chest like I never existed. But that bracelet? That was the gut punch. Because that piece of jewelry had survived a house fire, 2 family deaths, and 3 generations of women, only to end up on her wrist, pressed against the throat of another man. I stood across the room, just another body at her firm's holiday gala. No name tag. No introduction. Just a +1 to a coworker who owed me a favor. That was the only way I could get in. She didn't know I'd be there. She didn't even see me. Or if she did, she didn't recognize me, not in this suit, not without the stammer, not without the hope in my eyes she used to exploit. 6 months ago, I was the man carrying her bags through airports, paying half the rent on a downtown apartment I couldn't afford, pretending not to notice when she started calling me babe with that tone, detached, performative. I was the invisible one, the cushion she fell back on when her world spun too fast. The middle-class boyfriend who grounded her, she said, even as she stepped on my spine to reach the next rung of her ambition. She used to laugh when I worried. "You're paranoid, baby," she'd whisper as she turned her phone screen away. "You've got nothing to worry about." But lies have a scent, and after a while, I couldn't breathe without tasting metal. I started noticing her calendar was always full, her phone was always silent, her perfume always too fresh when she came home late. Still, I stayed. Not because I believed her. But because leaving felt like quitting a war I didn't start. But that night at the gala, something cracked. Not because she kissed another man. Hell, I knew she was cheating long before I ever saw it. But because she did it so freely. So publicly. As if I had never mattered. As if our years together were a dress rehearsal for her real performance, the one she was giving now, draped in privilege, smiling at powerful men like they were mirrors of herself. That's when I realized she hadn't left me. She'd outgrown me, or so she thought. I was a stepping stone. A soft-spoken man with average clothes and overdrawn dreams. And once she found a replacement with shinier shoes and a better car, she didn't just walk away, she rewrote the story, painting me as a footnote in her glowing arc. But here's the thing about footnotes, they contain the truth no one wants to read. I didn't rage. I didn't confront. I didn't throw a drink in her face. I simply turned, disappeared into the crowd, and began the quiet, methodical process of erasing myself from her world. No goodbye. No closure. I vanished from our lease. Closed the joint bank account. Cancelled the storage unit under my name. I didn't just walk away, I made it so I had never existed. And while she toasted her new life with her new man, I was already setting the stage. Because this isn't a story about heartbreak. This is a story about precision. About revenge served not hot, but vacuum sealed and aged in silence. She thought she walked away from me. But I left her first. Not just emotionally. Not just physically. I left her with nothing that ever belonged to me, and she still doesn't know what's coming. I was never the kind of man who turned heads in a room. I wasn't flashy or loud. I didn't wear tailored suits or drive a car that growled when it moved. I'm the guy who gets to work early, leaves late, and pays his bills on time. My name is Evan Hartley. I'm 37 years old, born and raised in a 2-bedroom home in a suburb just outside Cleveland. My mom was a public school teacher who graded papers at the kitchen table long after we went to bed. My dad worked maintenance at the county hospital and died of a heart attack before I finished college. I was the first in my family to earn a degree, business administration from Kent State. I didn't go to the Ivy League, but I clawed my way into a decent career in corporate logistics. Not glamorous, but steady. Respectable. The kind of job where you wear button-downs from Macy's and pretend your office chair doesn't squeak. I worked my way up, not by connections, but by staying late and solving problems nobody wanted to touch. That's the thing about people like me, we earn our place with sweat, not last names. We're not born into golf clubs and legacy internships. We watch rich people skim past us on executive ladders, wondering how many corners they skipped while we took the stairs. I met Harper Stone at a regional business expo in Chicago. She was everything I wasn't: polished, magnetic, untouched by the grind. She wore elegance like second skin, her laughter always perfectly timed, her words razor-sharp without ever drawing blood. She worked in luxury brand consulting, managing accounts I'd only read about in Forbes. Her firm catered to old money and new ambition, coastal elites who'd never seen a foreclosure sign up close. At first, I couldn't believe she even noticed me. I remember our first real conversation. It was over coffee in the hotel lobby, late at night after one of those endless panels. She leaned in, stirring her espresso with slow, deliberate movements, and said, "You're not like the others. You don't pretend to be someone you're not." It felt like the kindest thing anyone had ever told me. And maybe the most dangerous. Because I started believing she saw something special in me, not just what I was, but what I could be. We dated long distance for a year. She lived in Manhattan, I was in Columbus. I'd drive 6 hours just to spend 2 days with her. I remember once renting a car because mine wouldn't make the trip. I put it on my credit card, knowing I'd be paying it off for months. She laughed when I showed up soaking wet in a suit 2 sizes too big, after sprinting 6 blocks in the rain to make our dinner reservation on time. She called me, my charming little commuter. I didn't realize then that the word little was more than endearment. It was a classification. When she finally moved to Columbus, temporarily, she said, it felt like I had won something big. She took a temporary contract with a local luxury developer. Said she wanted to slow down, touch grass. I adjusted everything to make her comfortable. I moved out of my apartment and leased a condo she liked. She decorated it like a magazine spread. I started eating things like beet hummus and quinoa bowls. I pretended to understand the wine she brought home, even though I'd have been happier with a 6-pack. We weren't equals. Not really. But I told myself love doesn't care about status. I thought maybe I was her break from the artificial world she inhabited. Maybe I was her anchor. But the truth was, I was her pet project. A nice little escape. A man to mold into something that wouldn't embarrass her in rooms filled with Rolexes and legacy. She introduced me as a logistics executive to her friends, stretching my title into something it wasn't. She gifted me cufflinks I never asked for and booked grooming appointments without asking. Slowly, she chiseled pieces off me and replaced them with polished marble versions of who she wanted. And like a fool, I let her. There were moments, small ones, when I saw the cracks. She corrected my grammar in front of her colleagues. She laughed a little too hard when someone mocked Midwest culture. Once, she told me, "You're so grounded, Evan. You make me feel real, like someone outside my world." I smiled, but deep down I realized I was never in her world. I was an exhibit in it. Still, I loved her. I loved her when she forgot my birthday and blamed it on a client's dinner. I loved her when she said she was too tired for sex for the 3rd week in a row. I even loved her when she came home late, smelling like a cologne I didn't wear. Because I was raised to work through things. To endure. To believe that good men stay. That love, like rent, is something you pay on time even when it hurts. I didn't know yet what she was capable of. I didn't know that she was building an exit while I was dreaming of an engagement ring. I didn't know that behind those perfect smiles were calculations, and that I was just one more social investment to her, something to be written off when the returns dried up. But I will learn. And when I did, I wouldn't just leave her. I'd erase myself so cleanly from her life that she'd question if I was ever real. And that's where the story begins. I always believed betrayal would come with some warning sign: cold silence, sharp words, a slow unraveling. But it didn't. With her, it came like velvet, soft, slow, beautiful even. Until I realized it was the suffocating kind. Her name is Madeline Ford. Born to old Boston money, educated in Europe, and somehow always smelling of cardamom and confidence. When we met, she was everything I wasn't. While I took student loans and bagged groceries through grad school, she was flipping through Sotheby's catalogs, deciding whether to donate or destroy her art collection. I should have known. I should have seen it. We met at a fundraiser I was helping coordinate. I was on the operations team, clipboard, headset, sweating through my thrifted blazer. She was the keynote speaker's +1, though she moved through the room like she owned every chandelier above our heads. She said she liked my honest face. I thought she meant it. For 2 years, I let her build a world around me. She paid when we traveled. She bought the apartment, said it was ours, but I never saw my name on a single document. I chalked it up to her wealth, to her way of being. I didn't mind the dinners with her father's colleagues where I sat quietly, smiling while hedge fund managers called my nonprofit work adorable. I told myself I was in love. That love looked like a compromise. But betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the quiet changes. How her hand stopped reaching for mine in public. How she stopped laughing at my jokes unless we were alone. How she started canceling weekend plans with urgent family stuff and came home with the scent of cologne I didn't wear. Then came the gala. It was her birthday, hosted at the Belmont, Old Money's Cathedral. She insisted I didn't need to come, that it was just dry chatter with trust fund fossils. But I showed up anyway. I wore the only suit I owned and brought the pendant she once admired in a window downtown. I rehearsed what I'd say, that I didn't want to just live in her world, I wanted to build one with her. What I saw instead was her. On the balcony, laughing into the neck of a man I didn't recognize. Tall. Tan. The gold watch glinted like it was mocking me. His hand was on her waist like it belonged there. She didn't flinch. She leaned into it. I remember standing there, just far enough in the shadows not to be noticed. Watching her brush a kiss, quick, intimate, against his cheek. The kind of kiss that said you're mine, not hello. I didn't confront her. Not then. I turned around and left, the pendant still in my pocket like some relic of a dead hope. 2 nights later, she came home and told me we needed to redefine what this relationship means. I asked her directly, "Are you sleeping with someone else?" She didn't blink. She tilted her head, like I'd asked something quaint, and said, "Not everything has to be so black and white, Ethan. People evolve." I don't remember what I said next, only how she rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic, like my heartbreak was inconvenient. Then she walked into the bedroom and shut the door like I was a guest overstaying his welcome. But the final nail came a week later. Her father was hosting a business retreat in Aspen. She invited me, not as her partner, but to help coordinate logistics. That's how she phrased it. I was stunned. I wasn't her boyfriend anymore. I was the help. She said it in front of others. In front of her assistant. In front of the man from the balcony. His name was Brandon, apparently, and he was investing in her wellness startup. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. She asked me to be professional. I packed my things that night. Not just clothes. I packed everything I owned from that apartment, what little there was. My books. My coffee mug. The framed photo of my mother and me that used to sit on the mantel before she replaced it with a minimalist sculpture she claimed invoked silence. I left the pendant on the kitchen counter. But before I left, I checked her laptop. I knew her password. A part of me wishes I hadn't looked. But a larger part is glad I did. There were emails. Dozens of them. Between her and Brandon. Some work. Some, very much not. One line stuck with me. He's harmless. Sweet, but he'll be gone soon. He doesn't fit into this next chapter. I didn't cry. I just closed the laptop. Sat on the couch for an hour, staring at the door I'd soon walk through for the last time. She didn't even ask where I'd gone when she came home the next morning. She sent me a message, one line. I hope you're doing okay. I think space is good for both of us. She thought she left me. But she didn't know I had already disappeared. I didn't respond. Not then. Not ever. Not even when she tried to reconnect months later under the guise of closure. She didn't leave me. She discarded me. And that's why she never saw it coming. Because while she was busy rewriting her future, I was erasing myself from her past. Carefully. Deliberately. Quietly. Like a ghost. And I had every intention of haunting her next chapter. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But whoever coined that line clearly never sat alone in a one-bedroom apartment, surrounded by empty moving boxes, microwaving stale leftovers because his credit card got declined at the Italian place where he used to take her. Cold is easy. Cold is nothing. Cold is what she was when she walked away from our 3-year relationship with the same ease she used to cancel brunch plans. Revenge, true revenge, needs to be something else. Precise. Surgical. Calculated. And so I stopped crying. I stopped replaying the scene of her sliding her engagement ring onto the napkin, across the restaurant table, while letting me know that people like us were never meant to last. Us, meaning me. And people, meaning broke, predictable men who rent their suits and pay off student loans like fools. She'd already replaced me before I knew I was even in the running for my own life. But I wasn't going to let her erase me like a typo. No. I was going to rewrite the ending. I started with information. Not rage. Not confrontation. That's how you lose. Wealthy people like Ava don't fight with fists or fury, they destroy reputations, flip narratives, and make you look unhinged while they sip wine behind frosted glass. So I needed leverage. I kept my job at the tech firm. Quiet. Invisible. I worked overtime. Took night classes in digital forensics. Yeah, no one noticed. Ava never respected what I did, anyway. Said I fixed computers like a glorified IT guy. But while she posed for gala photos with developers and investors I had introduced her to, I was studying metadata trails, device cloning, and the digital fingerprints people leave behind when they think they're untouchable. Every Friday, I logged into an encrypted backup of her old phone she forgot she gave me access to when we lived together. She never changed the iCloud password. Amateur mistake. I found enough to start threading the noose. Affairs. Bribes. NDA payoffs. All wrapped in high-res images and receipts from her luxury card. But that wasn't revenge, not yet. That was just insight. Ava was a storm in heels, but her weakness wasn't sex. It was status. Strip away her image, and she'd collapse faster than her overpriced veneers. Next came the architecture. I mapped her world. Not just her, but the ecosystem that sustained her, clients, investors, the PR firm that polished her brand, the gossip sites she secretly fed curated leaks to. I printed names, timelines, and photos. Pinned them to a corkboard like a true cliché. I didn't care. My pain demanded order. Turns out, Ava's empire had cracks. One of her main donors, Robert Lansing, head of a philanthropic tech board, was married with 2 kids. Ava had sold him a wellness initiative that was just a shell company she used to launder reputation-damaging hush money. It was all buried under piles of paperwork, but not deep enough. I traced signatures. Found timestamps. Used the forensic software I had mastered to retrieve scrubbed data from her old iPad, which she left behind in a drawer when she moved out. The iPad she used to FaceTime her contacts. Her stupidity was beautiful. The final stage was social engineering. It's not enough to know the truth, you have to control who hears it, and how. I started feeding breadcrumbs to the right people, anonymous tips to investigative journalists, suggestive posts to burner Twitter accounts I ran. But never enough to implicate her, just enough to raise eyebrows. I posed as a concerned ex-employee and sent the IRS a neatly labeled envelope full of Ava's company retreat expenditures from 5-star spas and yacht rentals, booked under her LLC, billed as research and development. Meanwhile, I was playing the long game offline. Reconnecting with people she discarded. A former assistant she once screamed at in a parking garage. A business partner she ghosted after leveraging his app demo for a conference pitch. All of them were angry. All of them are eager to be heard. I didn't ask for loyalty. I asked for stories. I built a dossier. Still, I needed one final element, the exit. See, the most important part of revenge isn't what you do to them. It's what you take with you. In my case, it was narrative control. Ava thought she dumped me. Though she leveled up. That was her last memory of us, my blank face in a restaurant booth while she laid out her future, minus me. So I gave her silence. No begging. No closure. Just erasure. I moved out without forwarding my address. Changed my number. Vanished from mutual contacts. Deleted all our photos from social media, not with pettiness but precision. If you scrolled through my life, it looked like she was never in it. She began to notice. She texted me once. Just checking in. Hope you're okay. I left it to read. She called. I ignored it. Eventually, a friend told me she asked if I'd met someone. Said I was acting strange. That's when I knew, the plan was working. Ava didn't like being forgotten. She liked being remembered as irreplaceable. So I took away the memory. And when everything was ready, when her image started to crack, when investors pulled back slightly because of bad optics, when her name was mentioned in whispers instead of interviews, I knew it was time to begin. Not to end her. But to end the version of me she thought she destroyed. The one who begged. The one who wept. He's gone now. And what's coming? Isn't vengeance. It's balanced. Because she thought she left me. But I left everything first. I didn't show up to the gala to be seen. I showed up to disappear right after I set the match to everything she built off my back. The plan had been in motion for 4 months. Every tiny humiliation she'd inflicted on me, every dinner party where she paraded me like an accessory, every night I slept beside her wondering if I was just another one of her pet projects, it all crystallized into focus when I stopped reacting and started preparing. I learned one thing in that quiet interim: rich people love power, but they worship reputation. I wasn't going to ruin her financially. That would have made her a sympathetic victim in the eyes of the people who mattered to her. I was going to stain her name, subtly, artfully, with just enough deniability that she couldn't scream without sounding unhinged. And I started with the one thing she prized above all else, the foundation she co-founded, the one built in honor of emotional transparency for trauma survivors, the same platform she used to pitch her high society image. She had publicly talked about her emotionally unstable ex in vague interviews, describing how hard it was supporting someone from the wrong side of life. So I became on the wrong side. Quietly, I reached out to the board. I had her emails. Her voice notes. Screenshots of her admitting she fabricated one survivor's story for a TEDx presentation. A copy of a settlement paid under the table to silence a former intern. She never cleaned up after herself digitally. She thought I was too stupid or too broken to notice. My name? Not on any of the official records. I made sure of that. The day I contacted the board, I didn't use my name, I used a pseudonym and attached proof. Not all of it. Just enough to suggest more existed. They investigated. Her assistant got fired in the first sweep. 2 sponsors pulled out quietly. Her TEDx talk. Unlisted from YouTube. She didn't understand it at first. She kept blaming staff, the algorithm, and bad PR. But I knew her. She wouldn't panic until the silence grew too sharp. Then I went after her public brand. Remember the book deal she bragged about? The one she used my childhood story in, the part where my father abandoned me and I had a stutter till age 10. She claimed it was her composite experience as a trauma therapist. Well, I made contact with a trauma advocacy watchdog group. I didn't come forward, I simply fed them enough to dig. And they did. They found her degree from an unaccredited program. They published an open inquiry. It trended. She went quiet on socials. I stayed quiet in real life. She started bleeding. The friends she had collected at rooftop champagne parties withered away. One publicist dropped her. Then a podcast cancelled her. And all of this, I was just a shadow behind it. She had told me once, smugly, you only matter if someone can't afford to lose you. So I made myself someone whose absence cost. The final nail? Her mother. I never meant to go that far. But then I remembered all the times I sat quietly while her mom talked about how generous her daughter was for dating below her class. The way she smirked when I brought wine for dinner that wasn't from a real region. So when I learned she had lied to her mother about me, told her I was a temp with a criminal record, I forwarded just one email chain between us to her mom's PR office. Just one. And I attached the lease co-signed by her for our shared condo, proving I paid the entire down payment. Petty? Maybe. But effective. The dominoes began to fall faster. She texted me 2 weeks after the last wave of sponsorships pulled. Just a single line. Did you do this to me? I didn't reply. She called. I let it ring. Then I blocked her. Let her sit in silence and wonder. What did she do to me? It wasn't just cheating with someone she claimed was a professional contact. It was the way she turned my vulnerability into her platform. She dined off my pain. She painted herself as the saint who rescued a broken man from his sad little life. So now she can choke on that story alone. I attended that gala, not as a guest, but as the caterer's logistics consultant. I shaved the beard, changed the name on the staff ID, and wore a cap. She didn't recognize me as I moved past her table, lifting empty glasses from people who once smiled at me like I was furniture. And she looked gaunt. Not broken. Just exposed. Like someone who no longer knew who she was without the applause. I watched her sip from her flute of Prosecco, laugh a little too loudly, check her phone with fake indifference. She wore the same necklace I once saved 2 months' salary to buy her. She once told me it was just okay. Now it looked like armor. Funny. I thought I'd feel triumphant watching her unravel. But what I really felt was quiet. Not peace, not joy, just the absence of weight. Like I'd finally taken off a jacket that had been soaked and frozen to my skin. She didn't fall because I destroyed her. She fell because she was standing on a stage of lies and I simply turned on the lights. And me? I didn't return to our old apartment. I didn't post about it online. I didn't call anyone for congratulations. Instead, I walked home, 2 miles through the city I'd once felt too small in. And I stopped at the park where she first told me I needed to elevate my circle. I sat on the bench where I told her I loved her and she said, "Be careful who you give that to." I was careful now. I didn't give her revenge. I took back my story. She still doesn't know I was the one who left first. Not physically. She did that part on her own, with her designer suitcase, her smirk, and her rehearsed tears. But emotionally, spiritually, I had already vanished weeks before her affair became public, before her confession turned into an ultimatum, and before our loft became a sterile museum of what used to be my life. I watched her from a distance once. Not in a creepy, obsessed way, no. I had a legal reason to be in the same room. Court-mandated deposition. Her latest company was being audited after I anonymously tipped off the board. She looked polished, confident, even bored. But the flicker in her eyes when I stepped into the room said everything. She still hadn't seen it coming. That was the beauty of it all. She thought she was the architect of the ending, the one who broke free from a man beneath her station. But I had already pulled the rug long before she stepped out the door. I had been unraveling her social alliances, repackaging our shared ventures under new names, and removing myself from every space she thought she controlled. I wasn't there to watch her fall. That wasn't the point. Revenge, real revenge, isn't about watching them suffer, it's about watching yourself rise quietly from the ashes they left you in. I moved cities. Rented a small place near the water, far from the steel skyline that used to cage me. My job doesn't pay 6 figures anymore. I don't wear a tie unless I choose to. But I breathe now. Deeply. Fully. I spend my mornings with a cup of strong black coffee and silence, not a calendar packed with her charity events or her friends who never learned how to ask me a single real question. I keep a folder of old photographs locked in a drawer. Not out of longing, but as proof. Proof of how much I endured in the name of love, and how easily love can be mistaken for performance when you're dating someone who believes wealth is a personality trait. The first time I smiled again, it caught me off guard. I was talking to the cafe owner downstairs. She asked if I wanted oat milk instead of regular, and I made some dumb joke about how even my coffee deserves a second chance. It wasn't witty, but she laughed. And I laughed too. Genuinely. For the first time since it all collapsed. Sometimes I write letters I never send. To her. To myself. To the man I used to be when I thought love meant tolerating disrespect. I read them out loud and then I burn them. It's not for closure, it's ritual. A reminder that everything I let go of had already been hollow long before I finally dropped it. She doesn't call. Doesn't modify it. I suspect her pride won't let her. Or maybe she truly believes she won. That's fine. Let her think I'm the one who lost everything. Because the truth is, I did lose everything. I lost the version of myself that begged for crumbs. I lost the quiet man who thought being chosen was a form of validation. I lost the need to explain myself to people who only saw my worth in how well I carried their burdens. And in losing all of that, I found something better. Me. Not the man she molded. Not the man who swallowed his dreams to decorate hers. But the one who walked away while she was still packing her bags. The one who erased himself from her life so thoroughly that even her memories of me now feel like fiction. She left me, yes. But I left first.